When it comes to TF2, we have been limited. Where there was once a bountiful and overflowing river, there is now a drought of content. Initially, when TF2 came out, we were overrun by segments of storytelling through updates, comics, blog posts, and other media. But Valve abandoned us. And just like that, TF2 story got put on pause. But not all hope was lost. It has been confirmed that, in fact, the TF2 comic will be completed. This is incredibly exciting and something that the fandom has been waiting for a really, really long time, possibly like 8 or 9 years. And we've been wanting to see this story conclude. And in lieu of the news that we've recently been given, I want to explore just how this game has succeeded in cultural permanence through its writing. That was a mouthful. Let's get into it. I think that the writing of TF2 has been often overlooked. There have been many instances where a game suffers from poor writing and as a result gets disregarded or forgotten over time. Memorability and impact are incredibly important in writing any piece of media. Worlds that fail to make an impact lose interest and eventually become lost to time. Let's lay out all the information how it is. TF2 is a multimedia project. In the course of the last 17 years, TF2 has given us blog posts, cinematics, comics, and most importantly, a game where we can play as the characters of the story in the setting that we are presented with the circumstance of their situation as the reason for, let's say, capping a point or pushing a payload. I think that the most important part about it, though, is that it's principally an interactive media. It's a multiplayer interactive media specifically, which means that it falls prey to the lack of storytelling that can come from this medium. That's why games like these that lack a formal campaign like Call of Duty need these other supplemental story pieces. TF2 gave us very little of that, unfortunately, but still managed to create a pretty huge following just for the interest that it sparked in its target audience. Take the Meet the Team videos as an example, which coined all introductory character videos for future free-to-play games. In truth, these shorts are no longer than 3 minutes each, which is not a lot of time to introduce a character to an audience, especially not characters like Medic, Pyro, Sniper, Heavy, Scout, Engineer. Did I say Heavy? Heavy, Demo, Spy. These short introductions to the characters that we all know and love highlighted just how a little bit of good calculated writing can make an incredible opener for a character, which leads prospect players to want to engage in the game to see more of what makes these characters so interesting. It led me to do it when I was like 14 years old. Then you boot up the game, you expect story, and you get this.
What if I'd ask? I am depressed.
Next time, eat a salad.
Once you get to the game and you realize that the only thing that's in there is the voice lines, there is much more to be desired. There's not just that. There's also in-game items like the character's tools and weapons that point to certain facts, just like Sniper's bow and arrow tells you that he knows how to hunt. And most importantly, that he throws piss at people.
Peace.
Or the fact that Soldier is definitely into sodomizing. That's cool. You're into what you're into. This lack of supplemental media gets met by something like the comics, where they come in to pick up the slack of where the game left off. Initially as a way to announce new updates and such, but later became a breeding ground of potential to explore the story further. The first continuous narrative of TF2 began starting in 2013 and racking up a substantial fanbase. That's where I came in. The comics are what allowed fans to have quality time with these characters and eventually what drew them more into the complicated, ridiculous lore of TF2. As time went on, Adult Swim and Valve decided to potentially collaborate on a new show. But due to the time that it took Valve to make a promising pilot for Adult Swim, it never got picked up. There's actually a lot of lost content of TF2, from the original Meet the Team videos that got scrapped to the heavy eating strawberry scene that we never got to witness in Expiration Date. which is something that was confirmed by one of the writers of the short. This short became a showcase of the chemistry that these characters have amongst themselves. With Expiration Date, we witness the narrative potential of these characters when all strewn together. I think it's important to talk about these guys. The mercenaries are all one-sided, stagnant characters with no range outside of their predetermined settings. They have no dynamic capability. These 9 men are all one-dimensional. There's been no work put into advancing their plots or their storylines, at least not really in a way that is fulfilling to traditional character arcs. Since there are no true character arcs, there's no true development outside of minor personal arcs. There is no growth, no change, just more shenanigans. And although this sounds very negative, I don't believe that it is. I believe that these characters are miracles of writing. The TF2 characters are all caricaturish stereotypes. That could be a negative thing, but let's explore it. Stereotypes are easy to write in and easy to follow, but hard to execute in a way that doesn't become old with time. There's a beauty in writing characters and an intricacy in pushing them outside of their box. But I think that writing characters that are comically attuned is something that the writers of Valve have done excellently. Masterfully even. Although especially difficult, comedy frequently addresses stereotypes through satire and exaggeration. In some cases, satirical comedy not only entertains but also acts as a potential tool for social critique, challenging existing norms and fostering greater understanding and empathy. Does TF2 do any of that? Absolutely not. Does it border acceptability within its stereotypical representations? No. TF2 is not making a statement, because that's not what it's about. Team Fortress made long-lasting, familiar characters principally, and due in part to the tropes that they adhere to. All of the TF2 characters are your typical archetypes of something. Soldier is your typical crazy, Medic is your Frankenstein, Heavy is the stoic big guy, Scout is the cocky young one, Sniper is your typical quiet and reserved one, Engineer is your carbon copy Texan mechanic, Demo is the archetype alcoholic, Spy is the French cynic, Pyro is your mystery, out-of-the-box character. There isn't a need to expand upon them, at least not really. They exist in a space where they are timeless because of the format we commonly interact with these characters in. Team Fortress is a game that stands as a loop, where all characters, moments, and voice lines will not be a canon continuation of the lore. This is something that game writers have to take into account, and a particular aspect of what makes this job of writing long-lasting characters so difficult. There's something odd there, though. Isn't a well-written character supposed to break through those bonds and archetypes to be considered good? And the answer is not always. What matters, truly matters, is where the archetypes work and what they mean to the overall story. Leaning into their archetypes is what makes them so hilarious as well.
In fact, all of Chuck Jones's characters have very clearly defined wants. Notice that every desire here is very simple, and the simpler the desire, the more vivid the character.
First and foremost, TF2 is not a true continuous narrative. At least it wasn't until the comics. By the time the comics came around, the characters never had the chance to truly interact outside of Expiration Date, which came out circa 2014. This would have been the first time that the characters ever experienced proper motivation and challenges. I mentioned earlier that the characters never really experienced any arcs. A few were shown during the comics, but I'd consider them micro arcs. A relatively good example and showcase to this is the Sniper arc. In the comics, Sniper realizes that his parents weren't his real parents after the team was disbanded for the first time. He discovers that he is in fact not Australian, but from New Zealand, which is just fucking hilarious. I'm sorry, they're like the same thing. Don't cancel me. I just want to rage bait a little bit, just a little bit. In the serious video, there needs to be a little bit of rage baiting. We need to humble these motherfuckers. After this discovery and his death, his character never truly changes, actually. He actually becomes even more of himself, reassured by the fact that his parents have accepted him as the crazed gunman he is. I mean, assassin. Scout was close to becoming humbled by events occurring in the comics. Spoiler alert when he dies, but then God literally gives him a reason for his cockiness to persist by telling him that he is God's gift to women.
Have to go with the Scout. He is God's gift to women.
Another micro arc's is Spy. He comes close to being a responsible, caring dad for once. Then when Scout comes back to life, he's back to being the no strings attached shitty dad. Heavy is the one with the closest thing to an arc. From trying to protect his family constantly and secluding them to finally letting them move on and leave Siberia after being reassured that he can't constantly be protecting them. He is the only one that stands out from the bunch. And I don't think this is entirely negative that they don't have arcs, because here's a great example. The Lego Batman movie. And almost an immediate spoiler for that movie here, which you should definitely watch. The Batman in that film is closed off emotionally. A heavy metal rapping machine, stubborn, one-track minded, cocky. Used to getting what he wants, used to being alone and thinking he needs to be alone. There is a change in accepting that he needs other people in order to heal his wounds, but his essence never really changes. There is an arc there, but his archetype persists, and that is the same thing with TF2. There is a lot of humor in stereotypes and archetypes, and with this example in mind, it leans more towards comedy.
Mira este poste de luz.
Comedy is all in all a process of rhythm, subjectivity, unexpectedness, and, to contradict that one, planning. How does one write the unexpected in a rhythmic and planned way? That's something that a lot of writers struggle with, is writing unexpectedly without making it seem sloppy or forced. Comedy thrives on contradiction and defying expectations. I've never written a comedy script in my life, but many comedic sketches revolve around taking a normal, everyday situation and introducing an out-of-place character or element. This could be someone behaving in an unexpected manner or in an unusual aspect of the environment. The humor often arises from the reactions of other characters to this unexpected element. Comedy needs to be written like drama. It can't be written with the aim of being funny in mind. If it is, and that's the path that the writer is going to take, you're going to end up with something like this.
Nothing makes beer taste better than cool, clear Rocky Mountain spring water. Where are the Rocky Mountains anyway?
Philadelphia.
Really? I thought they were out west someplace.
Think about it, Raj. Where did the movie Rocky take place?
Philadelphia. Okay, now I get it.
Let's expand upon one of Expiration Date's scenes, which I think is just such a great example of a comedic scene. This scene has several moving parts and jokes that I find fascinating and very well put together, so let's deconstruct it. This scene begins at nighttime, with the men sitting around a table at a meeting where they'll be discussing their incidental time of death and final wishes. Just before this scene, the men discovered that they only had 3 days to live, so it is a grim and frankly leading scene. As the scene opens, the music is foreboding and military, which tonally conflicts when the first line is uttered by Spy, and that tension of the previous scene is shortly cut by this interaction.
This is a bucket.
Dear God.
There's more.
No.
Stop. This completely offhand interaction with the aim of displaying soldiers' madness amidst this very serious meeting is so fucking stupid. I think about this line multiple times a week. It is actually so fast that it's almost easy to miss and so completely out of context that it catches you off guard. If you were to watch it for the first time, you probably wouldn't even know what this is about. Over the course of a few seconds, we've gotten one great diffusion of tension. But the spy is quick to disregard Soldier with a confused glance and goes back immediately to the topic at hand.
It contains the dying wish of every man here. Scout, you did collect everyone's dying wish.
You bet.
Excellent. Gentlemen, synchronize your death watches. We have 70 hours to live. For most men, no time at all. We are not most men. We are mercenaries. We have the resources, the will, to make these hours count. The clock is ticking, gentlemen. Let's begin.
Spy is clearly attempting to give some sort of pep talk to encourage this group of unlikely work acquaintances. So although the speech is relatively serious and is supposed to be inspiring, we have clear indicators foreshadowing the outcome of the scene. One of them being Soldier's actions earlier at the beginning, and Heavy being jostled awake by Spy. He isn't being taken seriously. Look at all of their expressions, varying degrees of interest here. Let's keep going.
Our first dying wish is Scout's. He's drawn a picture of me getting hit by a car. I have something radiating off of me.
Yeah, those are stink lines. That's why the car hit him, because he smells.
Yes, I see.
Boom, an immediate clash has just been made to the spy's effort, which comes in as an unexpected jab to him. The buildup of his speech was for naught, and that's clear to the audience. He isn't immediately angry, though. Instead, he is cynical and composed, leading us to understand that pranks are common amidst these men.
Yes, I see. Here you've drawn me having sexual congress with the Eiffel Tower. Eiffel Tower having sexual congress with me. Both of us relaxing post-coitus. I'm crying, and the Eiffel Tower has stink lines coming off of it. Did anyone besides Scout put a card into the bucket?
Oh, man. Classic Scout.
Scout's joke gets drawn out by Spy as he describes the contents of the cards in front of him. This reading leads to an eventual climax. The beauty of drawing this out is that when the audience isn't looking at the cards, you can tell what he's looking at from just the expression on his face. The joke that was just being repeated successfully diverts our attention from the situation that these men find themselves in. Plus, there's a callback to the beginning of a scene that's about to occur right now.
Fantastic. This was a huge waste of my time.
You did not read mine.
Does it say you want the bucket?
Yes.
See you all in hell.
And boom, the joke came full circle. It was unexpected, it came quick at the beginning of the scene and wrapped around to top off the end of it. When writing comedy, establishing a joke early on is crucial to the development of a scene so that an audience may easily recognize it when it makes its swift return. It usually serves as a way to finalize a scene by bringing back themes that the audience is already familiar with. The bucket joke is so completely random that initially listening to it, that doesn't really make any sense or have any long-lasting effect. But that all changes until the very end when it's repeated by Spy. Its impact is larger, and what really drives it home is that Spy is aware of exactly what Soldier wants. So we've concluded 3 things. 1, the soldier is gone, without any rhyme or reason or explanation. 2, Scout has a particular dislike towards Spy. 3, Spy's effort was for nothing, but not really though. What we've established here is that there's a sort of brotherhood amidst these men in the sense where few things, even their imminent deaths, aren't being taken seriously, pointing to that they're not really afraid of it. Nobody really cares enough to follow up on their dreams except for Soldier for just a bucket. No one else feels that they need anything more to fulfill in their lives. And that's a theme that comes purely in subtext, which is absolute cinema. This is just one scene that tells us so much about the dynamics of these characters coupled with their strong personalities, and it's a match made in heaven. TF2, which initially stood out due to its silly and cartoonish aesthetics, has remained and persisted in gaming culture. The best part about it to me is that it was born with the silliness, and the silliness that shrouds the TF2 universe was careful, planned, and probably completely improvised. Instead of following the common trend of incorporating a large-scale topical drama, TF2 doubled down on its whimsical nature by developing an equally cartoonish story to match its characters. Had TF2 maintained a serious tone, had it shied away from embracing stereotypes, had it not created an absurd world filled with absurd characters, it wouldn't be as iconic as it is today. After the neglect from Valve, I feared that it would have died off if it were any other game, because in a world where Abraham Lincoln invented stairs, 2 Fort was named after 2 farts, and New Zealand sunk to the bottom of the ocean, there's still room for this. And this. And this. Which is why I think TF2 is perfectly written. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you made it this far, I want to tell you guys that this video is my two loves combined. I've always had a love for cinema, screenwriting, and narrative storytelling that I wanted to explore with TF2. I have more breakdown content similar to this and more TF2 content also, so thank you so much for that. Subscribe if you want to see me make more, and yeah, bye.